Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. It's Friday, so it's my PowerPoint presentations. For those of you who never were at the Yoga Circle from 85 to 2018, I used to give these little presentation literacies, my version of like TED Talks, but all yogically angled. Thank you so much for listening and for all the people out there who continue to respond to me, and I continue to have conversations with you both on phone, text, email, FaceTime, Zoom. Thank you so much for keeping this going and honoring what we're all trying to agree upon. All right, so today we're working on the elder wisdom. All right, so what are we sharing in elder wisdom? Where's the wisdom? Yeah, I can't find it. There we go. All right, here we go. So the first thing we talk about elder wisdom, first remember, it's not just about being older, right? White hair doesn't an elder make, and everyone has a inner elder. Ancient of days, the wisdom of your genetic code is already there. But the first thing we have to do is to realize that every one of us is hurt, and every one of us has some form of addiction or vice to numb ourselves in order not to feel the pain. And whether they're the soft addictions, it may not be heroin, but it could be TV or overeating or the internet or shopping or whatever it is. It helps you to avoid paying attention to what? To how tender your vulnerability is. And once you get this, you want to shift to what can I do to take care of myself, self-care. What can I do to feel better, self-nourishment? And the first thing we suggest is, from the Buddhist point of view, minimize your desires. You know, the Buddha said the cause of suffering is craving, right? And no craving, no suffering, but you can never get enough of what you really don't want. So does that mean you shouldn't want anything? No, but you gotta see how the culture makes us want so much more than we really need. And then notice what that sets up in your life. Nonetheless, once we look at desire, we have to realize that we are all members of what I call the sacred heart. Okay, you see Hanuman pulling his heart open, Rama and Sita, that's the original one. Christians got it from the Hindus. But we're all part of also what I call the scar clan. Everybody's wounded, everybody has losses, everybody can find medicine teachings in those losses. And remember, even if you had to develop a scar to cover over the wound, the scar is actually stronger than the skin in a certain way. So be thankful that your body can regenerate and do that, both physically and psychologically. Now, once we understand that, you have to realize there's no rules here. I love this quote. In my age group, it's so routine how you're supposed to act. It's almost like there's a rule book, and people will say to me, you're supposed to do this. And I say, where is the rule book? Show me the rule book where it says I have to do this and be this. So there's no normal life. Everybody got an edge knocked off. Creativity comes from those edges, from the marginal part of yourself. And eccentricity is a kind of gift. Don't throw that out. Even though the status quo might want to keep things the same, rebel against that. That is the elder wisdom. You're too old to care anymore. Now, you got to remember that when you were younger, you may or may have not gone through some kind of ritual initiation. Where the elders take you and they help you and they try to help you see, right? Sorry, wrong slide. They try to help you see what's up ahead. It's dangerous. It's unpredictable. Isn't that how life is? But the elders are also at the edge, man. They're unreliable because their home is in the soul, and they don't want anything to interfere with that. They don't let anything interfere with that. That's the contentment of the soul. That's so important. We don't live for the soul. We live for economics. But once you're accepted by the elders, you take your place and you really feel, I understand my purpose. I understand where I belong. All right. Having a little stickiness here in the transmission. Hopefully you could hear my voice when these things get stopped. Sorry that the internet is buffering right now. The best we can do when we're depending on technology, right? All right. So this is another interesting thing. Weavers pay attention to the tiniest and boldest threads, and they weave it all together. Your life is a weaving, a set of stories to see through all the twists and turns. That's the weaving itself. But once you've put enough onto the loom, each episode in your life is woven into the loom. You got to take it off the loom and put it to good use in some sort of way in your own personal life. Really important. So what are you weaving, my friends? Find out. All right, and we move on. Now, awareness hurts. Let's face it, being alive has heaviness connected to it, not just lightness and beauty. So not to accept that travail is part of life, and everybody gets it. And if you're living pretty well and very few parts of life are raining in on you, other people in your family, your friends, not so lucky. And then when you broaden across humanity, a lot of suffering. And so the elder in you helps us see behind and underneath things, to see where the cons are. You see who's bullshitting, you see who has the semblance of reality, but not the depth. And even though I may not be able to tell you what truth is, you can learn to see the false as false and reject that. Once you get there, then we move to this next level. He who has so little knowledge of human nature as to seek happiness by changing anything but his own disposition will waste his life in fruitless efforts. Yeah, they say when you're younger you try to change the world. When you're older, just try to change yourself. And then maybe you'll see nature as it is and not as we try to portray it or would like to portray it, with no Hollywood happy endings, just as it is, sometimes beautiful, sometimes horrible. So what can we do to understand this better? Tell stories. Stories are a kind of medicine. Medicine here meaning wisdom, not like big pharma medicine. And so elders are supposed to inoculate the young with new and pure life force based on the stories that the young have not heard before. And yet the young inoculates the elders with the treasure of their energy, their life force, without their even thinking about it. Just their youthfulness itself is a gift. Just their presence is a gift. Intergenerationally, really, really important. Keep telling your stories. And then if you do that, like my teacher, there'll be some standard. Right? At the negative level, we say perfection is our yardstick with which to beat yourself, and you always come up short. But it's an inestimable goal that you want to go for. And it's also an inestimable poison. It can mess you up, but also can bring out the best of your own inner ideals. And the last thing I would say to us all is, although we like the idea of enlightenment and brightening up things, but as Carl Jung says, enlightenment doesn't come by meditating on figures of light, but by making your darkness conscious. So don't be afraid to go in. Find that inner elder. It has the resources to help you because it's been through it in a certain way. And therefore, it's not going to bullshit you, but tell you the deep truth. Have a great day. See you soon.